Real Kyper and Bourne on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
All right, welcome everyone. Real Kyper and Bourne, but not real gunning.
Very real gunning. A fraudulent Nick Kypreos impression will be coming out of me, but the real Brent Gunning here. I love the suggestion for a name somebody dropped in last time in the YouTube comments because of my mustache. We won't say it again, but I loved it last time. So happy to be back with you guys. I wish we had Leafs playoffs. I got to be honest.
Yeah.
Haven't stopped thinking about all that since. I wish we had that to break down, but very happy to get into tons of hockey talk.
For sure. We appreciate joining us. The aftermath of the Maple Leafs loss has been Nick, Sam, and I contorting relevant events to be like, how does this affect the Leafs?
That's how I live the entirety of my life, not even just analyzing the NHL. So I would have fit in wonderfully there.
Well, and actually, we I don't think we got to them last show, Sammy, but Sammy has compiled an entire list of Leaf fan L's that have taken place since the Leaf season ended.
There's been a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, we want to get right into it here, or I had to pull it up.
No, it's okay. We don't need to go through the whole book.
All right, Zach Hyman scored last night.
Yep, there's a Leaf NL, although not really. Is it one? Does that qualify?
What do you mean?
Well, does it qualify as an L for the Leafs? Like you weren't going to keep him. You weren't going to pay to keep
It just hurts. It's not an L as in you made this terrible decision. How could you not have brought this guy back? But it's an L of, yes, grit and grind and heart and soul and scoring big playoff goals. Boy, could use a little bit of that around here. So.
Yeah. Well, today we don't have Nick. Kyper obviously he's at some important family function. I don't know how much we're at liberty to disclose. Nick's not here.
I found out I was doing this Monday, and it was get your butt in studio for Wednesday. So I can't even divulge.
Right. And so in his stead, we got Gunner. We're going to be joined by Shayna Goldman, hockey writer at The Athletic, to fill us in on all things Rangers. Ryan Leslie, NHL host on Sportsnet and Hockey Night, is going to join us and talk a little bit about the Flames. And Peter Baugh, Colorado Avalanche writer for The Athletic, going to be on in the last hour, fill us in on all things Avs. So feels like, what's up, Sammy? What's on your mind? Feels like the most obvious place to start, since not really a ton Leafy to discuss, is the Battle of Alberta. There was one thing, though, that did strike me as reminded me of the Leafs a little bit. Daryl Sutter last night after the Flames lose, they go down 3-1. All season long, he's talked about, he's been really, I think, hard on his team at times, right?
I mean, this isn't this year. This is a couple years ago. But the one that always sticks out to me was the Goudreau with his 500th game. Well, I hope it's better than 499. Like, if there is ever a way to kind of stick the knife in a little,
I think that was last year he said that.
Yeah.
Wasn't it last year?
I think he said, I hope he has more energy than game 499 or so. I was like, Jesus, Daryl. Like, leave the guy's moment here. But after last game, I thought, I don't know if it's because of the pressure or what. He was softer on his team. Why don't we start doing the Sutter clips? We got lots on the Battle of Alberta here. Here's a different sounding Daryl Sutter to me after the Flames lose in Game 4 on resolve and resiliency.
Thought we showed a lot of resolve or resilience. I think they score that empty net first minute of the game, and quite honestly, I thought we had a really good first period. And that's what I told him after the first. It's a winnable game for us, for sure, tonight. And we damn near did.
Moral victories from Daryl Sutter.
Never thought I would see the day. Just incredible. And dumb like a fox. He likes to play the, I don't know, resolve, resiliency. What other 25-cent words you got hanging on there? I don't know. Maybe that says more about me that I'm impressed by those words.
But truly, that stuck out to me, too. Just like this guy plays that whole role, and he really is thoughtful and has the large words. But also, I was always under the impression that he just came out there after games and said the first thing that fell out of his head. But like that is, he recognizes the point in the playoffs, I feel like, and he's talking to his team a little bit about wasn't so bad, but like, finding a little bit of like positivity in a loss. Kind of that stood out to me.
Well, I wonder how much of that, and you'd never ever get him to admit this, but I wonder how much of it is it's David versus Goliath. Like there is only one Connor McDavid in this league. We got the short straw or whatever you want to call it, that we drew him in the second round, and you can be hard on your team and you can ask them to be better and you can be critical and you can coach them. That's literally the job. Yeah. But at a certain point in time, you got to say, man, that guy's really big. And in this case, he's not big. He's really, really fast. And it's Connor McDavid. And I think you do have to grade on a bit of a scale for that. Not say you roll over and expect to lose or anything along those lines, but there is definitely a world where you say, okay, I cannot come out here and kill these guys, especially bouncing back the way they did.
And I thought that, a better job containing Connor McDavid in game 4, even though he still gets two points.
He always will.
Yeah. Well, we talked about the odds of him not getting a point was like plus 430 or something.
That's insane.
$100 bet, $100 on a $20 bet.
Yeah, and you lost.
I thought they were on the right side of him last night.
Yeah.
Like in the first couple games, the first game in Edmonton specifically, they just couldn't be near him. Like he was just wriggling away from them at all times. They were never on the right side of him. And last night I thought they were at least sort of trailing him the right way. They were kind of sending the help guy there. It's crazy they're playing help defense in hockey, but they really are. Like it's like 2 guys on him at all times. And I thought they were good last night, but he's just too good.
He's too much man.
He really is.
Speaking of having Shayna Goldman, I think the name of their podcast is Too Many Men.
No, but he is. It's like we talked about it a lot yesterday, and I will talk about it again today. But it's just things that happen in the moment like this. You just have to really appreciate it. And I'm doing my best, and I know Gunnar feels the same way I do about this sort of rivalry between Leaf fans and Oiler fans and this Connor McDavid versus Austin Matthews thing. And it's really hard to separate how I'm feeling about the Leafs and Matthews and the disappointment of the first round versus watching what's happening right now with Connor McDavid. And I'm doing my damn best to enjoy it thoroughly. I really am.
Yeah.
I'm trying very hard. And so I can't say I'm rooting for them, but I'm not rooting against them, which I normally would be. That's as far as I can go.
I think the other part of it too is that just when you're doing the Matthews and McDavid comparison, it was always, yes, Matthews is the better goal scorer. He's going to go and look, he went and scored 60. But McDavid obviously is the more complete offensive player. But the other side of it was always, well, look at all of what Matthews does. This guy isn't a Selke level player, but he's not all that far removed from kind of that level of two-way.
I know he's getting some votes for it this year.
Okay, there we go. So maybe he's not that far removed from it. But the other side of that the coin is that at a certain point in time, Connor McDavid can just do, and not even do, I'm literally not going to even talk about or acknowledge his defense because it kind of doesn't matter at this point, given what he's doing.
He never plays defense.
Well,
because not when he plays like this.
He doesn't need to. That's the thing. When you so far exceed what you're able to give offensively, it kind of doesn't matter because, as you said, don't have to play defense if you have the puck the whole game.
I don't know that there's many times in your sporting career where you're watching the best of an athlete. Like Tiger in his prime, what years would that have been? Where like
03
to 06, something like that. Yeah. Like where you're just like, he won half the golf tournaments he played in, and you knew when you were watching it was not a fair fight. Like guys that are tied with them, it's like Bob May and Rocco Meady, and you're like, that guy's gonna lose
for sure.
That's how it feels with McDavid, where it's like, I know that this is the pinnacle of a Mount Rushmore player of our game. And so, I'm with Sam where it's like, trying to appreciate that. I'm having a less hard time from a Leaf perspective, just in, I guess I haven't been an Oilers fan in my life, you know, like I've been an Islanders guy. So like embracing the Connor McDavid factor of it has been absolutely wild. Should we listen to coaches on him?
I would love to hear Sutter talk about him because it's really good.
All right, let's have that.
I said this morning everybody's questioning about defense or all that stuff. Well, you're playing against that. That's a totally different animal, right? That player. So you got to manage when you're on the ice better and recognize when you're out there. There's times we did it. There's times where you're not going to shut him down. So even with you couldn't. So.
The goal,
a little star wipe on that clip there. Good editing by me. I saw a great in our YouTube chat. This is a soccer comparison. I know Gunner's going to love this one.
Better be good.
Matthews is Ronaldo and McDavid is Messi. And I actually love that cross. I think that's an excellent cross-sport comparison in terms
Ronaldo
of two guys.
Well-rounded?
He's more of a offensive. He's more of a scorer, I would say, and I think Messi's more of a sort of distributor and kind of controls the game from that part of the midfield or whatever. But I think that's an interesting comparison, and people that are, my brethren on St. Clair will love that comparison, I'm sure.
Yeah, I cannot confirm or deny what's being said there, but I think the
Derek's
point,
shaking his head.
Okay. Well, so there you go.
Terrible comparison.
Maybe your brethren on St. Clair are really not liking this at all.
Terrible comparison.
But I think the thing is that this is what you do when you have guys, and again, it's like much to what McKee was saying there, I don't know that we can keep doing they're in the same boat. They're both no. Connor McDavid, what he is doing right now is just on a completely different planet. And I love what Sutter said there about it's a different animal, it's a different species, whatever you want to say. There are players in the league, and again, Austin Matthews is the best version of that guy.
Yeah.
There are guys who play like that. Again, not to the same level, but nobody plays the game the way. And again, I don't even want to do the comparing him against Crosby or whatever, but when Crosby was going, and he was going, man, some of the seasons he had, I don't think we wholly give him credit for
During
them.
tough scoring eras, Crosby's prime.
But the thing about it was you'd seen players like him before. He's the best version of that, but you'd seen amazing two-way guys who grind. We have not seen this. I mean, there have been other unicorns that do it differently. We've never seen somebody like this.
No, I think that's fair. I like the idea that Crosby was the best at what we had seen, and this is something like what we haven't seen before. The goal in your life is to do something where the opposition, well, in sports, where the opposition just goes, well, they're going to do that. Yeah. What do you want me to I can't do anything. I have an article out today on sportsnet.ca about how McDavid makes the Oilers better when he's not on the ice. And all the different ways, and it's not about leadership or anything like that.
That's what I would have wrote. Me not being as plugged in as you would have been like, well, he just wills them to victory, obviously.
But he takes up the coaching oxygen. So, like, when a game one ends, the Flames have 45 hours. I think it's 2 days minus the time of the game, 45 hours till the next game. They have to watch all that video. They got to sleep twice, eat 6 meals, and have the video ready to the guys. So you only have so much time to go through the video. And McDavid takes so much of your effort and energy that a coaching staff wouldn't have time to pick through the neutral zone forecheck or the, lost draws in the defensive zone, or like something would not get attention because McDavid needs so much. So it strengthens the ability of everyone else to be decent.
And like you said, and we kind of chatted about this yesterday briefly, but like even in game, that's all you're thinking about. Like you talk about like the pre-game stuff and leading up to the game, but all you're thinking about is when he's on the ice, you're like, oh my God, how do we stop this? And when he's not on the ice, you're thinking, when the hell is he coming back on the ice?
Well, and when he's not on the ice, you're also thinking, okay.
You're pressing, I'd imagine.
Well, but you're also like, this line is fresh and I want them to go next. But I need these guys for when McDavid's out there, so I have to put someone else out. Like your bench changes, because so he's controlling the game. And Kipper and I were saying yesterday that in basketball, you can give the ball to the best player. He can have it, every offensive possession, 48 minutes. I know that's rare, but it's possible. And in hockey, you just can't. But McDavid has such influence right now that he's affecting everything. Calgary just. And Sutter pointed out that they got 4 inexperienced defensemen. That never came up till they were trying to contain Connor McDavid, Well,
and the other thing about it, too, in terms of, you're right, you're saying, oh, I can't use this line here because I'm going to need them 2 shifts from now because of McDavid. But then the other part of it is you feel like, and again, you're always trying to win your minutes. I get it. But you really have to win the non-McDavid minutes. He'll never admit it. You never say it, but you assume, okay, we're going to get outscored, 2-3-0 in those McDavid minutes? How do we go out and effectively tie the game from there on out? Like, I honestly hadn't thought about that part of it. That's really interesting.
It's wild, too, that, this guy is we know he's so good, but then some of the criticisms about defense hasn't mattered or whatever. In 11 playoff games, he's plus 17.
That's pretty good.
His line mates are plus 9 and plus 5. I don't even know how much more he's getting out there to do what he does.
That's absurd.
Well, because you always think of, and not that he doesn't score at 5-on-5, but you think, man, how red hot has that Oilers power play been forever? And clearly, based on the plus minus numbers, it's not just that.
Well, the plus minus people will really get down on it, and I agree.
Well, we'll call it goals for differential.
But
they'll be okay with that.
The high, like if you're around even, I think it's not telling at all.
No.
But it's like the very high end and the very low end are incredible. Remember when Nick Lindstrom was in his prize? He was like plus 80 every year. It's like,
Chris Ponger's career plus minus is like plus 600
Those are some of my favorites, is going back to look at the true defensive stalwarts of any given era, and just it's in the hundreds and hundreds. It's insane.
And then you talk about like Rasmus Dahlin as a rookie's minus 40 or 50. And it's like, well, he's you can't tell, it's plus minus. And it's like, meh.
At a certain point. No, like you said, if you are dominating it in a positive way, obviously it means something. And if you're on the Masters leaderboard every year, you don't want that.
Not ideal either. So that game last night swings for a moment on one of the most, well, actually two of the most bizarre goals. I shouldn't put them in the same boat. One of the most bizarre
Markstrom's so
goals.
happy about that, by the way, because again, like that's a really bad one. Like we're kind of just skating past it because was it a weird bounce off the dash? No. We can't let him off the hook, but
Right,
nowhere
bad play.
near as bad as Smith.
Yeah, Mike Smith gives up a goal in the air. For an usually it's like a bounce, right? Like I remember Al
Toskala,
McInnes used to
always.
shoot it off the toes to skip one in there. Just a clean slapper from the other end of the rink beats Mike Smith.
Yeah, that was one of the most shocking moments I've had watching hockey in a really long time.
Well, in Cuthbert was like,
Because it's late.
Flabbergasted.
Listen, it's late. These games are late. Like I'm not a burn the midnight oil guy anymore. I used to love late night hockey when I was younger. And I'd be like, oh my God, I love it. I was a little
In and
delirious.
out.
I was delirious a little bit. Like I was kind of like I was watching it, I was locked in, but your
What's
eyes
even happening
my
here?
eyes are heavy, and like he just wrists it. And then he puts his arms up. I'm like, what happened? My volume was low. I didn't want to wake up. It was like, oh my God, that went in? I literally said no effing way to myself.
and what a pivotal time in the game. Like the Oilers are up 3-0. The Flames get a couple and crawl back in, and that ties it at 3. Like that's an opportunity for a hockey team to just lay down.
Oh, it's so easy to. It's all we ever talk about with the Leafs going bad. And look, we did it. How does this relate?
Leaf show,
to
buddy.
the
This
Leafs?
is the show where you're allowed to bring everything back.
Again, it's like I do it with my life. I'm like grocery shopping, and I'm like, I'm feeling a little underwhelmed by this. Oh, where have I felt that feeling before? But I mean, in terms of that, we saw it a few times where, be it Mrazek let the bad goal in, or we can go back with this team a few years to the Enroth era or things like that, where a bad goal just cratered him, just sinks them. And you had every chance in the world to lie down there when that happens. And the fact that they didn't, again, I think it does say a little something about them. Now, again, how much of that is it easy to have the resolve and the belief when you're sitting there and you're looking at the best player on the planet next to you? It probably helps you out a little bit there going, okay, well, we can always spot him one because he's going to get us at least that. And it's just, it's amazing that it didn't crater them, quite honestly.
Even though they don't win game 1, I think it said a lot about this team that the Flames got up as much as they did and the Oilers found their way back. Like this team has really shown some resolve and resilience in the face of chances to lay down. We got a good quote from Woodcroft on that. Let's play the Woodcroft on the Smith goal.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with our group's ability to handle adversity. Our guys were saying the right things on the bench. There was calm, there was composure, and we knew we just had to continue to do the things that lead to success. And for us, it was making sure we had the right people on the ice at the right time. There was a period in the game where we thought we stopped shooting the puck. I thought after that goal went in, we put our nose back to the grindstone and found a way to get the winning goal. So I was happy for our group.
He's got a bit of Keefe in him.
In what
Talks a
way?
lot. Talks a lot, and he's very thoughtful and he really listens and gives a long, thoughtful answer. He talked for 11 minutes after the game last night. That's very Keefe-like.
That is a lot.
I do feel like there's a evolution of coaches where old school coaches had the old treat the media like mushrooms mentality, feed them poop and keep them in the dark.
There you go.
And these younger guys are more prone to being like, here was our process on this. And
Here, let me thoroughly explain this to you and look you in the eye and call you by your name. And maybe the knives will be out a little
I'm not
less.
sure which I prefer, to be honest.
So I just want to live in the world 1 second in the alternate universe that the Oilers don't win that game. And this game is now going back.
The Mike Smith game.
It's now going back to Calgary 2-2. Like, where does that rank on the all-time bad ones? It would be right up there with any of the gaffes in the
Do we
history
ever
of the
talk
league.
about that goal again? Outside of being
no.
like, yeah, he gave up a long one.
Yeah.
but
No. Well, the only way it happens is if this Smith eventually has the meltdown and blows it. You say, we saw it coming. We saw shades of this many moons ago, but you're
But
right.
they
Unless it
shot another
happens.
one through Smith last night too. The second one, kind of trickles under his
Yeah, it's not
arm.
good.
Like, there's Smith has that in them where I don't know how comfortable you can be at any time, but
I've long felt that way, but this is the whole thing about goaltending and look, like there are people who break it down and analyze it and do a great job of it. You, of course, can analyze and understand goalies better. Of course, I am not saying it is nothing but throwing darts at the wall, but at a certain point in time, 40-year-old Mike Smith is just going to get hot for a couple weeks, and you saw that, but the guy we've seen. I mean, this has been the whole story of his time in Edmonton, has it not? Oh, look at this. Mike Smith, look how he's playing. Look at what you're getting out of him. And then the 2-week spell happens. And this has always been the thing. I mean, again, look, I'm going to do it. Going back to the Leafs, that was always the thing with Freddie. Yeah. He's going to be rolling, but he's going to have his 2-week spell where it just doesn't happen. And it kind of felt like that's what happened. That's where I'm at with Smith right now.
He'll jump in front of a shot across the net, make an unbelievable save, and then he'll let one in from his own end. He's the absolute wild card.
Oh, it'd be a nightmare for me personally. Before we get to Shayna, can we listen to Daryl Sutter on the Mike Smith?
Oh, yes.
We got to
absolutely can.
Well, they got one, we got one. So it's 2-2.
A little different.
That's the way the game is. It's funny when when that shot was taken, I said, I think that puck could go in the net. And it did. Yeah, it's like funny.
Have you ever seen one like that before?
I can't remember. I was probably in Chicago Stadium through the smoke or the something.
Through the smoke.
So, why is Daryl Sutter having a great old time after that game?
Because he's just I'm going back to the farm. He doesn't listen. This guy's won cups. He's rich. He doesn't feel the pressure. I really don't think he cares.
Do you think he actually saw that shot and thought, I think that could go in?
Yeah,
I
do too. For sure. Think about how much. I mean, and you've seen a lot of hockey in your day. How much hockey has Daryl Sutter watched in his life? That's not the first time he's seen that. He's probably not joking about seeing it through the smoke in the Chicago Stadium.
And just making
stadiums in hockey. Think about how long ago that had to be.
This is completely off the rails, but I was quizzing myself the other day. I couldn't figure out why are any arenas called gardens? Do we know the words etymology? Anyway.
I wish it was the Scotiabank Gardens.
That would be great.
Well, but why was it ever gardens? At Leaside Gardens in town,
I don't know.
Maple Leaf, Boston.
I don't have an answer for you.
They used to plant
If I was
flowers.
Gord Stellick, I might, but I don't have one for you.
Yeah,
We'll have to do some digging. I don't know.
We should.
SN Stats is good at stats, but I don't know that they can.
I don't think
we have SN history.
No,
I don't think we have that.
We should get that.
Man.
So the other game last night, the New York Rangers win 4-1. They take it back from the Carolina Hurricanes, even the series at 2-2. Carolina has now lost every single road game.
What is going on?
I don't know is the answer to that question. We fortunately are going to get Shayna Goldman in just a minute to walk us through the Ranger side of thing in that series in particular. But what did you think of the Trouba and Max Domi hit that led to a power play that kind of started to change the tide of the game?
Look, Max Domi fell down. Trouba will never, ever let up on a hit. If he has a chance to crack somebody, especially at this time of year, he's going to do it. He's a bigger player than Domi to begin with. Domi fell down as he was engaged in the hit. It's terrible. I know the league doesn't want that, but there was nothing wrong with it in terms of what Trouba did, in my opinion.
Well, perfect. We can get more on this from Shayna Goldman, who joins us now, hockey writer at The Athletic, here at Sportsnet, Sports Logic. You're all over the place. Shayna, how are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We were just getting into the Rangers and Carolina series. I know you pay a ton of attention to the New York Rangers throughout the season. Now tied up at 2-2. What are your thoughts on the series so far with Carolina and how they've come to be knotted up?
So I think the biggest thing is it's surprising how well the Rangers are keeping pace with the Hurricanes, because the Hurricanes are trying to play their game, and I think that they have another level that maybe New York can't keep up with. But so far, the fact that they're managing to keep pace as well as they are and protecting the quality areas of the ice through at least games 1, 2, and 4, minus some shortcomings, to complete the 60 minutes, they still have to work on that. But I think that's the biggest part of it so far. And goaltending, obviously, they have to back them up.
Yeah, I mean, the goaltending, there was the little blip in the first round there, but I think this was the guy we kind of all expected to see. We were talking a little bit about the Hurricanes and that they've yet to win a game on the road in the playoffs. And, for me, the first place my mind goes to with that is matchups. Is there something the Rangers are gaining matchup-wise by being at home and having last change? Like, is there a line that they're able really to roll out against top competition, or is it a D pair they trust more than others? Like, do you think it's something with matchups that are leading the Hurricanes to struggle so much against the Rangers in this round? Or at least on the road, I should say.
Yeah, my brain goes exactly to the same place. You would think it's matchup-based, and for the Rangers, they don't have as many options up front to match up against their opponents. They have two good scoring lines, but their shutdown line usually falls on Mika Zibanejad's line. He's the player they trust to handle it, and rightfully so. And in round one, we really saw that crush him against Sidney Crosby's line. So in this series, it's interesting. When it was in Carolina, they had Jordan Staal against Mika Zibanejad's line. And then the Aho line could take on Panarin, and Jacob Slavin could be paired up against Panarin as well. And that line hasn't been clicking as well. So being able to shut down the Zibanejad line is a huge advantage for Carolina. And now that it's back in New York, Zibanejad last night, he played a lot against Aho's line instead of being shut down by the Staal line. And that's definitely helping them play to their strengths too. The other thing is for defense pairs, Adam Fox and Ryan Lindgren are the two that generally play against top competition. And when they lost Lindgren in round one, that completely hurt their matchup game because their options were Fox and Justin Bourne, an imbalanced pairing, Patrick Nemeth and Braden Schneider, a pair they definitely don't trust in those situations. So it fell on K'Andre Miller and Jacob Trouba, who can handle some tougher minutes, but I think that was out of their depths going against Jake Gensel, Brian Rust, and Sidney Crosby. So now that they're healthier, I think that's going to help them, have two defense pairs they can rely on a lot more. So they can pair Adam Fox and Ryan Lindgren up against whoever they want and not be struggling as much as they were.
Yeah, there's Shayna goes more into this too. We got an article up right now on Sportsnet. New York holding pace better than expected. A good read on where the series is at. And I also forgot to mention that you were the co-host of Too Many Men, which you guys just got picked up by the Le Batard Network. Is that right?
Yeah, we were doing it on our own, but now we're teamed up with them, so we're doing it a lot more frequently.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations on that. It's a fantastic podcast, and we're pleased to have you today. I wanted to get a little bit more on the animosity in this series and your thoughts on how much that has played into things. You see, like Gallant's going at D'Angelo on the other side. Like there's a lot of intensity in this series. It feels like that's shifted sort of the shape of the play, has it not?
Yeah, a little bit. And I think the thing was that game 3, they could have just let things settle at the end. That was that. But it did carry over into game 4. And the Rangers let it roll off them better than I think the Hurricanes did. And you saw that at the end of the game, too, come to fruition, or even the hit on Domi. The Rangers don't, as physical as they are, and they have like up there hitting, and they can seem like this super tough opponent, it's not like they're racking up fights all the time or anything like that. So if they can play to their strengths and get in their opponent's heads, but then not necessarily act on it unless they need to, that's, for the better. If they were to have done anything, it would have looked premeditated or anything like that. And I know some pointed to the Trouba hit, which I don't think was the case. I don't think that was a premeditated hit on Domi or anything like that. But it's interesting. Like Ryan Reeves, if you take him off the ice for 5 minutes, that really doesn't hurt the Rangers. If the Hurricanes lose Tony DeAngelo, it does. So it's all about managing that. And that's something that I think he still needs to work on. You saw a lot the last round. Brad Marchand is one of the best at knowing how to get players off their game by being a pest, and he knows how to do that. And he was able to get DeAngelo off of his game completely in one of those games in Boston. So if the Rangers do that, it only helps them. But, it's definitely on both teams to make sure they hone that as much as possible and know how to channel it the right way.
No, definitely. And man, you look at the way the Rangers are handling all this now, and it's, for me at least, it's impossible not to go back to the end of the season, 2 years ago with Wilson and Panarin, and they felt it was clearly something they had to address. And it's as easy to point at Ryan Reeves and say, there, we addressed it, but it can't just come from him, and I don't think it has. And, I'm not talking about this player in terms of him being, really fighting or being nasty, but I think it's a guy who's been super engaged, and it's Alexis Lafreniere. This is a guy who, number 1 overall pick. We think he's going to have this amazing hot jump start to his NHL career, and it just doesn't really happen for him. But he, to me, feels like the poster boy of somebody that it is amazing how much a player can be changed by having just a little bit of team success early in their career and getting deeper into the playoffs. Like, it feels like Lafreniere is having this other side almost pulled out of him by just being in the playoffs this long and winning around. And it feels to me like it's just kind of proof positive of why it's so important for young players to experience, of course, personal success, but team success early in their career.
Yeah, so 2 things there. With the incident with Wilson, I think it's so tough because I do think the Rangers were overreactionary in how they tried to get tougher. And it's more about having bite throughout your lineup and knowing how to be tough to play against. And I think the tough thing with that situation, too, was it was on the power play. Ryan Lindgren was out of the lineup and Jacob Trouba was. And if I remember correctly, so was Chris Kreider. So they're players that you would expect to be able to go toe-to-toe a little bit more. Whether it's fighting or just being physical throughout the rest of the game, they weren't there. But with Lafreniere, he does have a little bit of bite to his game, which I'm sure is something Gerard Gallant likes. It seems to be something he likes seeing his players. But overall, this was a player that his usage has been really tricky. He got third line minutes last year and minimal power play time. So it wasn't entirely surprising that he didn't break out when he didn't have, in your rookie season, you hope to have quality teammates around a player that's so important to elevate their game. And this year, there was a big difference when he did play with Kreider and Zibanejad, and he did play on the right, which is his offside. So he made progress and then did bounce back to the third line and still had, little to no power play time. So I think that would have gotten him a little bit more confidence. But in the second half of the year, when they were more willing to put him back with Kreider and Zibanejad, I think that benefited his game a ton. He had a lot more confidence going into the postseason. And now, the kid line, as they call it, like they're clicking and they're getting these scoring opportunities. So that's so helpful for their development. They're getting this experience now.
How has this Rangers team changed over the course of the season? I just look back to the trade deadline and remember the whole thing was like, well, this team, gets pumped at 5-on-5, but they have great goaltending. And then that became not the case anymore. What has that evolution consisted of? How have they made that change?
So they've definitely had a lot of struggles at 5-on-5 throughout the season. And after the deadline, they addressed the team the right way by adding players like Andrew Kopp, who could be a two-way force with Artemi Panarin, something that line was missing. And they were trying to fit players that just didn't fit the role enough in that position, thinking they could bring, defense without addressing the offensive side of the game, which a player who played alongside him still has to have. Frank Petrano brought in scoring depth, and Tyler Mott is just a good disruptor. So those were all things they needed to address, and Justin Bourne on the back end to now play over Patrick Nemeth. And so after the deadline, they did work on their defense a lot more. This was a team that is, in the bottom five allowing rush chances against a 5-on-5. They just had the goaltending to mask any deficiencies in front of them. So they worked on their structure, and that certainly helped until round one when it fell apart. And now this year's we're seeing it back together the way it should be. Offensively, they did make some improvements at generating even strength offense, but in round one, they got worked. Post-deadline, it was better, but it still wasn't great. So it's still an area they have to work on moving forward. And I think that it's, a matter of having the players in place, which now they have better than they did before, getting those players to execute, and then ensuring the systems are in place and all the tactics that these players are asked to follow clicks with their playing styles as well.
No, obviously, all that's really important. A guy you mentioned in the answer there, Chris Kreider, he got a ton of love this year. He scored 50 goals. Anytime you do that, you're going to get noticed. But I still think, and, maybe I'm just talking about myself here and I need to smarten up. But I still think a lot of people think of him as, all his goals come from 8 inches in front of the net, and that's what he is. He's a power forward. He can stand there and he can't be moved. He made a great pass to set up a goal last night. He's a little more of a slick player than I think I would have expected, really kind of drilling in and watching him now in this second round. Do you feel like people give Kreider enough respect, not for being the goal scorer he is, but being a little bit more than just a guy who parks himself in front and tips and bangs home rebounds?
I think he does deserve more credit for that. It's easy to look at his goals and look at the highlight reels and see the power play goals. And so many of them were in that net front role, which makes sense. Like this year's power play was generating a higher rate of shots than years past. So he was able to benefit from that by redirecting them in front. But that is just one aspect of his game. This is a power forward who has great straight line speed and can streak down the wing and, shoot from the circles or get in front as well. He has the skill. He's more of a shooter than a passer, but I do think that when he gets those passes off, they are often like sneaky good passes that, could he do it more? Absolutely. But it's something that it was a really good skill of his game. And the last couple of years where it's Mika Zibanejad as the primary scorer, that passing would get highlighted a little bit more. And this year, Zibanejad took on the role of being more of a passer than only a shooter. And now you can see how Kreider's benefited from that.
Shayna, how have you assessed the play of the top guys on the Rangers? We saw Florida's top guys not produce, and they fell short. The Leafs guys were the story throughout the whole series. Can Matthews and Marner be better this year? The Panarin, Fox, Zibanejad, how have those guys performed in the postseason so far?
So Zibanejad, I think, was focusing a little bit too much on defense in round one, and how can you not when you're going against Sidney Crosby? And I think maybe had he had a little more defensive support on his line alongside Kreider, like maybe if they had a Kopp or a Mott, earlier and not just in the dying moments of games 6 and 7, he could have focused a little bit more on transitioning to offense instead of playing down low as often as he did. But I think that he has picked it up this series in particular, and, not facing a right-catching goalie has helped him on the power play as well. And I'm sure everyone can point to Kreider and Zibanejad as the players who need to do more, and there's definitely reason to believe that they do. I think that they're picking up now, but it's Artemi Panarin's game, his game throughout the regular season, he would flip the game on its head in seconds, and he would put points up, which is great and wonderful, but he didn't have as many underlying numbers that supported how well he was showing up on the score sheet. Around the deadline, that changed. I do think adding Kopp was a game changer for him. But in the playoffs, maybe it's a matter of being more conservative. He did say that, the coaches asked him not to do as many things at the blue line that maybe he would have wanted to do. And in my opinion, and I'm not a coach, I'm not a former player, but I would think that you want your best player to play to his strengths and see what he can do. And if there were mistakes, then you deal with it instead of being so, secure and safe from the start. I think he's someone that needs to be a little flashier. But I think last night was one of his better games. You could see on the power play there was a little bit more willingness for him to take a shot, which then got the penalty killers drifting closer to him instead of only staying on Zibanejad because they expect him to be the passer when he's on the right. So it's things like that. If he can be a little bit more elusive with the puck and a little bit, more deceiving of what he's going to do, then he'll be playing to his strengths without necessarily taking as many risks. And Adam Fox was, scoring on the power play in round one, and that was great for the team when they were getting shots from the point as well. But you could see him struggle when he was playing alongside Justin Bourne. And now that he has lingering back, it's not that he needs a defensive support. He's a very good two-way player, and I think sometimes his defensive strengths don't get highlighted enough because we think of him for his offense. But to have the two of them together is really what the team needs. And last night was one of their best games. Shots were pretty even while they were on the ice, but you could see how hard it was for Carolina to get to the quality areas when it was the two of them on the ice together. And he's so smart with his positioning and his stick, and that's what makes his game click. So if the Rangers see more of that moving forward from their top guys, they're in really good shape.
Yeah, really good shape and a chance to take down the Carolina Hurricanes and go on a little bit of a run here. So we really appreciate all your insights. Thanks for joining us today, Shayna.
Thanks for having me.
Shayna Goldman, Too Many Men podcast with Sarah Sivian and Allison Lucan, I believe. It's very, very, very good podcast. So congrats on all their success. By the way, while we were having that chat, very informative on the New York Rangers, we learned about where Garden comes from.
I saw this. I did
Really?
see this.
Yes. It ultimately stems, the Boston Gardens, all the gardens. It ultimately stems from the Latin word gird or guard, reports Word Sense. This word means broadly open space. It lends itself to two keywords in English, garden and yard. So calling a huge arena with a high ceiling a garden makes sense in the classical use of the term.
Look at you.
I love that.
Thank you to @OneRippleRD. Who shared that with me on Twitter.
There are so many people dying to answer this question because I'll be honest, I typed it into Google and I found
it a similar answer?
It's the same. Yeah, it's like it's from sportscasting.com, which feels very fitting for me to have found it there. But it is amazing that it is just
Is this your degree?
It is the exact same like generic article of I saw the Gurdan and all that as well. So yeah, there you go.
One person looked into this once and wrote one article on it. Now every second person is like, we don't need to do another article.
Are they right? Who knows? Who cares? We have that answer. That's really all we needed. But just something approaching an answer.
Yeah. Anyway, very, very, very interesting stuff.
Justin Thomas committed to the Canadian Open.
Hey!
Amazing.
That is awesome.
That's great news.
World number one, Scotty Scheffler going to be... Okay, I won't do the whole thing.
Between Shayna saying Justin Braun a lot and me thinking I was playing D for the Rangers and then the Justin Thomas, which is two of my three names, I'm really feeling involved in a lot of things.
At least no one called you Jason.
That's true.
That
well, it happens every
We haven't
time.
had Mac on.
I know. That's why I had to get it in there.
Yeah, Jim Benning. Was that what he called you last time?
What's that? You said Jim Benning? What? I've never been more confused in my life than when that happened to me.
You got the ING right. Anyway, a couple of N's.
Again, like if it came with the salary, I'd be happy to do that. There you go.
What about the hair? The vampire hair?
I mean, again, salary.
Whatever that hair color is not naturally occurring in nature.
No.
Whatever Jim has going on, that's all I got to say. I'd also like to add that the Jason Bourne thing happens to me at least once a day. At least once a day. It is when I first got a job here at Sportsnet in wardrobe, that was written above my clothing was Jason Bourne.
Your first job was in wardrobe?
Well, no, my first job here when I was at work.
Yeah. We all played a round of golf together last year, and the wonderful gentleman John Cavan, he kept calling you Jason Bourne so much that to the point where
I believe it's my name.
I had to be like,
am I wrong?
Is it? Hold on. I was about to because we're riding.
Justin, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. I was about to turn to you and just be like, wait, what is your name? Because it's amazing.
Anyway,
without fail.
Yes. All right. Well, thanks to
Happy
Shayna
we got
Goldman.
that in. Happy we got to talk about Jason Bourne a little today.
Yes, for sure. Happy to get to talk to Shayna Goldman as well. That was great. When we get back after the break, we'll be joined by Ryan Leslie to talk about the Battle of Alberta.
Real Kyper and Bourne on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
You know, I'm so used to hearing Kypreos lead us in and out. I don't even know how long he lets that music play for. It could be like a minute. I have no idea.
I don't know.
Welcome to Real Gunning and me.
And you.
Yes. Justin
work on
Bourne,
the name.
Brent Gunning. Yeah, we're still developing that one when we're together. Nice to be joined by Shayna Goldman before. Up now or in a sec here. Anyway, we're going to get Ryan Leslie to talk the Battle of Alberta. And I'll have just 100 questions about Daryl Sutter and what it's like.
What's that like?
Asking that man questions who clearly has no regard for the feelings of anyone answering the question.
No, none whatsoever. And there was a guy who used to be here who carried himself similarly, but not, if that makes any sense. Like that's honestly the most, exactly. Exactly. That's exactly what I think.
That's awesome.
Leslie's there. I was just talking to him about Owen Sound, so he's there now.
Oh, important things. Well, Ryan, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
Boys, I'm great. I'm back in Cowtown. Got out of Edmonton safe, and
Good.
that's really all that matters this time of year.
No, of course. I mean, what a awesome, fascinating series you're covering right now. I'm just gonna kind of go with a blanket question to start. What do you think? What are your takeaways at down 3-1 to the Edmonton Oilers so far?
Well, probably like you and others, in every market are discovering and witnessing and enjoying is that regardless of who your rooting interest is for, the team, player, who you cover, the conversations you have, we are witnessing greatness.
Right.
And make no mistake about it. And I don't care who you are loyal to, if it was Gretzky or Lemieux, if it was or Howe, if it was Lafleur or Bossy. We are witnessing, for my money, the greatest, most dangerous player with the puck in the history of the National Hockey League. And I'm not talking about anybody other than Connor McDavid. The guy is unbelievable. And to see it firsthand, eyes on, it's always different when you watch it live. And I don't have a bias. I see him just enough in person throughout the year.
Yeah.
I see him do damage. He has taken another step that's otherworldly. And I say, regardless of what happens, we are seeing him take another step towards absolute greatness, and it's been a pleasure to watch. It's absolutely frightening whenever he touches the puck. That's the takeaway from this series. And when you hear the Calgary Flames talk about, what do you got to do to turn things around, they'll talk about finding their game, but in the same breath, they'll also say one guy is beating us, and that's a scary thought in itself.
Yeah, it's almost like, how do you stop a river from running? It's like, well, you stop it, but it's like, if the river's going to exist, it's going to go where it goes. And that's almost what it feels like with McDavid now. And this feels like a bit of a weird thing to say, because I don't know that Connor McDavid ever had a coming out party. He's been part of our lives since he was, especially living here in Toronto, since he was 15. This guy's been talked up, and even before then. But it does feel to me like this is different, right? This is the moment where we're all going, this isn't a special player for now. This is a special player for all time. And it feels to me like, again, if you would have told me Connor McDavid's going to have a coming out party in this playoffs, I would have said, well, who's been living under the rock? But that's what it feels like right now.
That's exactly what it is. And, you think about those Jordan Bull teams, and, the Bulls had to lose, and they had to go through some lean years, and then all of a sudden it popped. And not to suggest that Michael or Connor wasn't great early on in junior or college, but we are seeing the elite. And I'll tell you, it is just something where you watch his edge work, you watch his strength, and I'm not kidding. He is not a skinny kid anymore. This guy from the waist down is packed, and he is just solid back there. And I watched Zadorov at 250 pounds swimming and hanging off him on that one beautiful goal 2 games ago, and it was like, oh my gosh, he is hard to move, to go along with the fact that none of us can catch him, to go along with the fact that none of us can do what he does. Now he's added the strength to go with the speed. It's really impressive, and that is the takeaway, regardless of any bias or any loyalties. That's just what it is, and you have to, no matter what market you're in, just say, okay, now does he have the best resume? Not yet. No, he doesn't.
Right.
There's guys with way better resumes. So I'm not saying this as the argument that everybody weighs in and says, well, he doesn't have Crosby, or, he hasn't done what Ovechkin. I get it.
Yeah.
This guy, just as a player, is as lethal as there is. I'm at an age where from Guy Lafleur up, I can accurately say that. Beyond Guy Lafleur, I can't.
Mm-hmm.
But those guys were great in their own right. This is just something so frightening at such a level: physical, speed, creativity, making others better. And I'll tell you, the building just sits up the moment the puck is on his stick, and everybody's, oh, what is going to happen? Doesn't matter what building you're in. You're rising. It's must-see TV. It's too bad we buried him at 10 o'clock in the east.
It is sub-awesome, I'll be honest, that it's that
Well,
way.
there's a way around that. You know, if he wanted to make his way a few hours east, and then we could get him in the 7 o'clock time.
The ultimate Leaf Show ask. Yeah, just come play
I will
here.
double down just because I'm from Ontario and Leaf Nation is absolutely bananas. There is Austin Matthews.
Oh, he's very good.
He's elite.
Yeah.
But he's not where Connor McDavid is, and I'm not even sorry to say that.
No.
He's not.
I don't think anyone here is watching Connor going, yeah, Austin does that. No, that doesn't happen.
And he's lethal. He's dangerous, but he's not Connor.
So then what do the Flames do, Ryan? I mean, you've seen this team, and I know you don't have the answer. You'd be the coach, and even the coach is failing. But, like, now what? You know, I feel like if you get so consumed by one guy and forget about everything else, like, if you beat the rest of their hockey team bad enough, can you hang in there? Like, I don't know. They're not done. This Calgary Flames team is too good defensively, too good physically. But I guess what now? What needs to go better for this Flames team to find their way back in the series?
Well, you're right, honestly. Like, that's the million-dollar question. But the truth is that the Calgary Flames still haven't played their best game in the series. They hadn't even found it until last night. You have to feel like, hey, we kept Connor in check. He only had a couple of points. We tied the game up in the third with a fluke Bizarro world goal. And we really liked our game. And we still didn't win if you're the Calgary Flames. You're sitting there going, oh, now what? Yeah. Now you're in a huge hole. The goaltending hasn't been spectacular. Top-line guys haven't exactly been dominant. Depth guys have yet to really appear. Chris Tanev is injured. And, boy, did he look like a broken down man last night, didn't he, on the bench? Is he
okay? Is he going to play again?
No, he's not okay.
Oh, I see.
He's not okay. I thought I heard the MASH theme song playing in the background in between whistles, but it was sad to watch because he's such a battler, such a warrior, and you could just see where Hyman was around the net. Just maybe let's back it up 15 to 25 seconds prior. Mm-hmm. The play was deep, and you could see Tanev calculating, okay, if this is going to hurt, when do I, put the ball? There was no battle in front. I got to pick my spot, and then boom, it's in the back of the net, and he was just hurting. So he is not okay. I don't know what he would have been shot up with, if anything, but did see him walking down the hall after the game. That's the one where you just kind of look down, hey, and you don't really, hey, how you doing? No, you don't. You just stare at their shoes. So when they pass our place, it was just tough to watch, and you just don't have an answer, especially when things are going. Now, do I think they can rally and come back in a game? You're darn right I can. As far as the series, Connor McDavid, as we've illustrated here, is not going to allow that to happen.
Do you feel like that's why, and I don't want to say that Sutter by any means is taking it easy on his team or letting him off the hook, but, this is a guy who ripped into Johnny Gaudreau right before his 500th game in the NHL. Like, it's not exactly like he's always Mr. Better Coddle the feelings here, and not that I think he's doing that, but you mentioned the tact he takes, the way he sounds after games. This isn't, we absolutely must be better. It's, they got one, we got one. It just seems like he's kind of almost, and again, I realize he's coaching. This isn't a man who's actually going through the motions, but it feels that way. Do you think part of it is he realizes what they're up against as well and knows that he can't kind of push it quite that hard?
No chance. I think Darryl, first of all, publicly does the opposite of whatever you think he's going to do. Right. After a loss,
this is true.
He was incredibly chipper last night. He was cordial. He was jovial. And I'm sitting there going, that's okay, sure. Yeah. I mean, he is. That is the way he is publicly, outwardly. And when you win 5-1, he's ornery. He's bitter. He's sour. Publicly, he pushes buttons hard all year. And I don't know if you guys have ever had coaches where, they're hard, but he's so smart with his tactical ways that he knows when to put the hammer down and when to ease up on the gas. And so all year of just crushing these guys, and then scale it back a little bit in order to get the most out of them.
Yeah.
It's really impressive. It's like Hockey Canada, bring guys over the world, all just teammates, enjoy Europe, have a blast. Then we're going to bring your families over 2 weeks later, and you're going to either play guilty, play fun, and play hard. And you're bonded, you're together, and you're ready to go. And then they mop up. But this is like a way to, I think, make sure you're getting the most out of these guys. He knows how to do it. And again, publicly and outwardly, we see one thing. But on the inside, it's very different. I think if there's one thing that really stands out, it's Daryl's ability to get the most out of every player and recognize who's doing what on any given night. And his bench management is impressive. So, I don't know really what's going on behind closed doors because they are closed, locked, and sealed. It's really hard these days. But I'll tell you, he's going to push every button tomorrow night. He's a proud Albertan. He does not want to lose this series, and he will not concede, even though he covers his tracks beautifully, saying all year, hey, Vegas and Edmonton were the teams to beat, even when they were in the driver's seat early on in the regular season and late when Edmonton started to surge. He's always quick to say, hey, remember what I told you, Edmonton's for real. So he puts it out there, but he wants to win this series desperately and will not give up.
Yeah, no, I was really struck by the tone you mentioned too, that he's kind of walking it back on the team. Like now's not the time to pile on with a little bit more. So really savvy stuff. But another thing that stood out to me was he was like something about inexperienced D. We got 4 inexperienced D. That hasn't been the story of the Flames to me this season. It's been great defense. 3rd best team in the NHL in goals against per game. We mentioned the physical play and the forechecking. That feels like it hasn't come up. I mean, I don't know. What did you make of that comment? 4 inexperienced D. That doesn't strike me as the Flames.
Well, it's inexperienced in that, they don't have a lot of playoff games under the belt.
But they're not kids.
Completely correct.
Yeah.
But they're not. Well, I mean, you take Tanev out of it, and he has been out of it since Game 6 of the Dallas series. Okay, so what have you got? Well, these are guys who are just now learning to be in these roles. They've had success in the regular season. But as everybody knows who's listening, the playoffs is a different season. So I think this, and he's been very vocal about how they are learning to take another step as a group. There's a lot of guys. He will praise those who have won and been in the battles, but he will also make sure that it's really well known that if you've not done anything, you haven't done anything in this league. If you haven't done it in the postseason, you haven't done it. And, I think he has a good way of deflecting that experience and, go elsewhere with it and make those guys battle harder because they've heard what he has said. He knows that he's using us as a soundboard, and those players are going to hear it, and they're going to feel the heat of what he says publicly, and they're going to play for each other. He actually, there is a method to the madness, and as a lot of people just hear the little snippets on Instagram or Twitter, and they think, oh, this guy's just tearing apart the media. Everything is calculated, and some questions are fair and some aren't, but either way, he's going to take it where he wants it to go, and it's a message to the public, it's a message to his team, and I think he's gotten a lot of success with his methods.
Yeah, coaching through the media is such a thing. I mean, we always think about it here because there's so much media, but I mean, anywhere you're doing this, I mean, they're using you, they're using us because it's such a powerful tool, right? So much of the talk about this Flames team, yes, it was the big boys. It was Tkachuk and Gaudreau and Lindholm, but a lot of people, myself included, really like the Tyler Toffoli ad. A lot of people love what you were getting out of Mangiapane, and not that those guys have completely disappeared, but 5 points for each guy, 2 goals. They're actually both of the exact same stat line. 2 goals, 3 assists through the playoffs. You get both of those guys to score. Do you feel like the Flames have got enough? And I don't want to put it just on those 2, but they're the easiest places to kind of point. Have they got enough depth scoring, do you feel?
Pardon me, the 2 being Mangiapane and?
Toffoli.
Oh, yeah. No, certainly. And I wonder if Toffoli, who isn't battling something this time of year, but he doesn't look himself. And certainly the speed out there is enough to expose just about everybody when you get the Oilers' big wheels going. But I got a hunch Toffoli's battling something, but he is doing what he can. Guys like Dubé are trying. They're just not finding it. Mangiapane, who has been 35 goals this year. You need that depth scoring. And here we are talking about this, but yet don't forget how many goals were scored in the first 2 games of this series. It was a full-on track meet. And and there were goals aplenty. So, 15 in the first. So we can go on and on about the offense, but I think most importantly, they are concerned about their defensive game, which, as you mentioned earlier, they're a good defensive team, and the goaltending has been there, and the defense has been there. But in the playoffs, man, it seems as though the offense is what's killing it. So, and you know what? Mike Smith, as wacky and wonky as that rodeo has been, they've seen the best of him, and they know, like Brett Treliving had him in Arizona. He knows he can be all world or he cannot be all world. So
sometimes in the same shift.
Yeah, well, great call. Yeah, and you kind of roll the dice, going, all right, I like our chances with Markstrom, and it just has been one of those things for the Calgary Flames. And I don't know if it's certainly not conditioning. It's certainly not. Everybody's playing with injury. It's just, I think really, when it's all said and done, you're going to look at this and look back and say, oh, it's Connor McDavid's second step towards, going where he's headed, and it's scary for the opposition.
Do you got any concerns about Markstrom's ability to figure it out here? Because it kind of hinges on this guy making some stops here. It's a big part of that plan, right?
Yeah, such a good goaltender, such a fiery competitor. He had such a consistent year this year. This may just be one of those ones where he looks back and would say to you, I could have been better, I could have stole one, and you're going to need him to steal one, and maybe he does that tomorrow night. It's not over yet, but you need him to be, you need your best players to be your best. He has to be one of them.
For sure. All right, well, Ryan, we really appreciate you joining us today. Congrats on getting back to Calgary safely, and enjoy the rest of the series.
It was nuts. I tell you, I walk out of that rink last night, you'd think they'd won the Grand Prix, Super Bowl, and Stanley Cup all at once. It was like a party that you would see on the streets of Rio. It was madness, and they're having a lot of fun up there. They're one step away, but we'll see what Calgary has left. Yeah. Thanks for having me, boys.
No worries. Anytime. I know as a Canadian hockey fan, I hope we get to see it again. I hope we get that.
I would love to see it. Pangs of jealousy as well. But yes, I would love to. I'd love to see it for the people of Edmonton. And look, one of the
and Sportsnet.
Well, here's the thing. Like one of the highlights of
stock price.
I don't want to go as far as say my youth or whatever, but like as a younger hockey fan, Red Mile is one of the great things we always remember it. Yeah. And I know the Oilers are looking to have a orange mile. I don't know what color.
They got Moss Park, right?
That's right. That's their thing.
Moss Park is an arena down the road from here. It's the Moss Pit.
Moss Pit.
We're on fire.
Have you ever played at Moss Park?
No, I haven't. I haven't played in like 3 years.
Oh, we got a spot on Thursday nights. Yeah,
always be scouting.
Moss Park is an arena down at Queen, and is it Queen and Sherbourne?
I don't know.
It's not in a great spot.
Not an
but
elite.
It's once you get past the front doors and the people that hang out in front of the front, it's a great rink, great ice, good showers. It's not bad, but Moss Park. But yeah,
I feel like a notable Harvey's is around the corner.
Yeah, very close. Yeah. This is just one of the fascinating debates, and we kind of talked about it, but like rooting for other Canadian teams, and mostly fans will say, I think it's like a test. If you hear somebody's like, I'm rooting for the other Canadian teams, that immediately tells me, no, like, listen, I don't fan shame people. I don't fan shame people. But like, I will be like, okay. I'm not gonna be like, oh, you idiot. I would have if I was in my early 20s.
Like, oh, it's that kind of fan.
But then immediately I'm like, okay, I know the conversation we're having. But I will say, I am really enjoying watching Connor McDavid play hockey. Yeah. And I just kind of want to keep doing that. So I guess I am rooting for them.
You know what it is
like
for me?
Flames.
You do like the Flames, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead. This is more interesting than what I was going to say.
Well, I like the Flames in that, the evolution of how I feel about what a successful hockey team is going to look like.
Okay.
I thought the NHL was moving in a direction of speed and skill, and it was just going to be whoever could out-talent the other team. Once we got away from all the punchy stuff.
About a team that wanted to build their roster.
Yeah, well, that's part of this. And I've kind of gone back to the you can't be successful in hockey without the stuff that makes hockey hockey. That physical stuff and intimidation. And I don't mean like fighting intimidation. I mean, like, you have to go compete against another man for a puck. And if someone comes in at 100 miles an hour and they're 240 pounds, you're a little hesitant.
It's
battling
amazing
for inches.
It is amazing how
anyway the Flames have that
lightning quick in the playoffs. You can see it, especially from a team that hasn't been there before. And look, all these guys have played at playoffs of varying levels, be it college or junior or whatever it was. Different animal in the NHL. And it is so amazing for me to see those first few shifts of a guy that's been there a million times before. You know, you think of the Killorns and the Palots on Tampa, and not that, again, I don't feel like the Leafs won the first game 5-0. It wasn't that they folded, but a player like a Ilya Mikheyev who's just never been through this before. Oh, that's how we're playing now. It's almost like when you're like play fighting with your buddy and he like kind of hits you and
catch
you're
you
like,
the clean one.
That's a little more than I thought we were doing, but okay, we're doing that now. And that's to me what always kind of jumps out to me, exactly that thing. The reason for me why I am, again, it's not rooting, but it's, I think, and the NHL should be the NHL. I love it for what it is. We need a little NBA in the NHL. We do.
In which way? Because you're right in several ways.
Yeah, but in the fact that the best player in the game is putting on a show and he is going to drag his team to a cup final or a conference final. And the most important part of it for me is that we are having a Connor McDavid conversation every single day. And it's not the one I always have of 4 more years until he's coming to Toronto. It's the one about, look at how incredibly dominant this guy is. And the fact that it's one thing when he's doing it in January, and like Ryan said, it's at 10 o'clock, and there's half the people that should be watching it. We're all watching this right now. Anyone who cares about the NHL is watching this and seeing this. And again, it's weird to say he's having a coming out party for a guy who's been the super stud from the second he joined the league, but it does feel like that to me.
Well, and we've just seen elite players, and here in Toronto, we saw Austin Matthews go up against, the Philip Deneau line and see how hard it is when one guy focuses on you and says, my goal is to stop that guy. Like,
don't care about anything else.
No, if I'm on Montreal, if I can, void Matthews, we don't care what else happens. And that happens in the playoffs, like in a way that it doesn't happen in the regular season. So to see Calgary, as good as they defend, a team with all the hype about all the forechecking, say, that's the guy we're going to shut down. And McDavid be like, I loved your river analogy. It's like, you can drop a dam right in front of it. It's just going to pour over the top and go over the sides. And like, he has seemed inevitable.
Yeah.
In a way that we haven't seen in hockey in a while. He's, my wife came in the room the other day and I was like, watch this, like just a McDavid highlight. And she's just like, oh,
Jesus.
Yeah, she can
where
see.
was that?
Where did that come from?
So the most points in a season since 96-97 regular season plus playoffs.
Yep.
Number one on the list in 08-09 was Evgeny Malkin with 149 points.
Prime Malkin.
Malkin.
So good.
Yeah. Maybe the best player in the league in his time when he was on.
Honestly.
Then the next is Connor McDavid at 148. So he's 1 point back of.
This man has stacked up 25 points in the playoffs.
And then the next
11 games.
The next two guys on this list are Joe Sakic and Jaromir Jagr, and he is ahead of those two guys.
Oh my God!
So this is all
the
time.
second round. It's the second round. Like I think we're all aware of it. We need to just hammer home. He potentially has 14 more games or something along those lines that he could play in.
He has at least 3 more.
I was actually thinking, let's say, get through this round, a couple of games here. They play in the conference final. They go 6 games in the conference final and lose 6-7 games, whatever. Could he score enough points to win the Conn Smythe and not make the cup final?
I don't
Could
think
it be possible?
Hockey would never.
No.
There is no.
He's 25 points in 11 games.
I know.
The second best guy who's not on his line is Kucherov with 15. He's 10 points back.
That's nuts.
Okay.
But by the time you get to the end of the third round, McDavid could have a 30-point lead.
A
20-point lead.
I am not saying you can't give it to him. I'm saying they will not give it to him. Hockey at large. The guy,
I know you can't.
The guy I always think of with this, and he ended up trundling down the list, but one of the years the Avs got bounced in the semis, or in the second round, Forsberg was still the leading point getter in the playoffs deep into a round beyond the one he had played in. And the fact that there's a world where McDavid could stop playing today and go on to lead the playoffs, and not a world, like a very real possibility. It's just, it's flabbergasting. That's a good one. I don't feel like we've used that one too much. We're running out of words.
Gabbers have been flasted.
Is that a what the hell? I don't even know.
I don't know either.
I kind of forgot what I was going to say because of that.
You're flabbergasted.
I do remember now. Colorado, Edmonton has the potential for just
let's go
speed.
It's also the best chance for like a team like Colorado to thrive. Against a team where they're not going to get out muscled by Edmonton. Edmonton's D. I got to be honest, boys. like this that Edmonton is doing what they're doing right now is because you heard Daryl Sutter say, well, Edmonton has a more experienced decor. They got experienced guys. They got Duncan Keith, and then it's Cece, Barry, Darnell Nurse hasn't had any depth runs. Brett Kulak,
and the thing
Duncan
about
Keith has surprised me with how good he's looked.
Yeah, he's been effective.
It's weird because he had the one play, I think this was in the last round, although it might have been early in the Flame series, where he just got absolutely torched out wide. And you're sitting here going, oh, is that what it's been like? It's not been. Like, he had the one play that got really highlighted and pinpointed by a lot of people, but he's not been that guy. And again, when you're just able to play a safer game like you are, when you have McDavid in there, it allows a guy like that to thrive.
Yes, sir. And looking forward to chatting more about that in the back half of the show. When we get back from this break, we're going to talk about Colorado St. Louis. We have Peter Baugh of The Athletic, beat writer there. So we will talk to him when we get back on Real Gunning in Bourne. drive the price down.
This is Real Kyper and Bourne on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
Welcome back to Real Kyper and Bourne minus Kyper at a gunning. I don't even know what our show
There you
name
go.
is when you're here.
I don't know.
Real gunning. Sure. Anyway, we give it a try.
Jim Betting and Bourne.
Jim Betting and Bourne. We are now joined by Peter Baugh of The Athletic, Colorado Avalanche beat writer. Peter, thanks for joining us. How are things in Colorado today?
Hey, things are well. Thanks for having me. I'm just sitting in downtown Denver outside. It's a lovely day, so all good here.
As beautiful a city as there is in the U.S. I absolutely love Denver. We appreciate you joining us today. As you sit there, you must be preparing for the Avalanche to clinch a series against St. Louis possibly and move on to the conference finals. What are your thoughts on where the Avalanche are at right now? A pretty good spot heading into Game 5.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you ask the Avalanche going into this series, they could be up 3-1 heading into a Game 5 at home. They'd probably take that in a heartbeat. And it's, yeah, I mean, especially at 5-on-5, they've been the better team this series. And someone asked me why the other day. I did a St. Louis radio segment, and I was like, I wasn't trying to be a smart aleck, but I think at the end of the day, it just comes down to the fact that they have better players. And like,
Sometimes it is that simple.
yeah, like they've had a really good year with a lot of guys who have emerged. They kind of went all in at the deadline, picked up a lot of supplementary players who have helped them these playoffs. And it looks like it'll probably get them to the third round, but the fourth game isn't easy to win. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, that's always the thing is closing out a series. It's one of the hardest things to do. And, you know, whatever effort you got from the team to take a 3-1 lead, you're probably going to see a little bit more. Obviously, with us being here in Toronto, Nazem Kadri, a name very, very familiar to everyone here. We all knew the second the Kadri trade was made here, there was hope, there was belief. Hey, maybe Barry works out, maybe Kerfoot is the guy. But we all knew the Leafs were losing a really good player in Nazem Kadri. I don't know that we saw him getting to this level. What have you guys made of his play this year? And again, like a very talented player, but I don't know that any of us saw him having the contract year that he did this year.
I mean, yeah, he's been unbelievable. And if you look just in these playoffs, this Blues team has, like, their forwards are very good. And you have guys like Ryan O'Reilly who, while the McKinnon line has maybe been a little better than the O'Reilly line for the Blues, it's been pretty even, and they've kind of neutralized some of the Avs top guys, and that's where you really need your secondary scoring, and that's exactly what Kadri has provided, not just this series, but all year. I mean, career high in points. I think he had, 87? And he was on pace to get to 100 points, but he got hurt late in the year. So it was a pretty impressive season, and I'm sure we'll probably make him some money this offseason.
Yeah, he should do okay. I imagine after that one. You know, looking at this Colorado team, I mean, things are kind of lining up nicely. Edmonton has a lead in their series, and I would say that's maybe a more gettable team with their defense. So how is Colorado positioned with injuries? I know they lost Sammy Girard. Seems like I think he's going to be out for the entire postseason. Otherwise, though, the team looks healthy and poised for a pretty good run.
Totally, yeah. I mean, so Girard broke his sternum, which sounds just so like one of the most painful things.
Yes.
Yeah, I cannot imagine.
I got
that.
poked there the other day and it killed. I can only imagine it getting snapped. Yeah.
Yeah. So they are, other than him, they're healthy, at least to the point where everyone is available. I don't know. Obviously, a lot of these guys are banged up this time of year. You see a lot of maintenance days here and there, but everyone is available tonight except Samuel Girard.
So the rest of the decor then we'll see Jack Johnson, I imagine, slot in. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what they did last game. I'd expect that would be the same this game. I think if he struggles or if someone else gets hurt, there are a few other options with Ryan Murray, who was playing actually. I thought he was playing really good hockey towards the end of the year. But then he, unfortunately for him, took a puck, it looked like, to the hand or the arm and had a fracture, and has kind of been out. Well, he's healthy now, but by the time he got healthy, he would kind of been supplanted in the lineup. So, but he's an option, and then they've got the minor league season is winding up, but I'm sure if they needed to have some extra defensive depth, they could bring up someone from down there.
Yeah, sticking on the D, part of when I was looking a couple of years ago at this Colorado team, and we all are saying, okay, this is going to be a juggernaut. This is going to be a problem for a while. You see what Makar is. Obviously, you see the forwards up front. But then they land the 4th overall pick in the draft, and it's Bowen Byram, and he has had brutal injury luck for the start of his NHL career. He picks up a couple assists in the last win. How has he been playing, and how is he kind of acclimatizing himself to the NHL and the playoffs so far?
Yeah, he's been good. It's really a shame with it. I wrote a long article earlier this year, if anyone wants to read it, on The Athletic, about just kind of the battle he's had with these concussions. And he had three concussions in his first calendar year as an NHL player, and that's just brutal. And some of the recovery wasn't always linear. He came back a few times and then wasn't necessarily having concussion symptoms, but it still wasn't right, so he'd take some more time off, and it was just a bit of a brutal situation. He, honestly, early this year, he had 2 concussions in the 2021, truncated season. And then he went into this year feeling great. And honestly, the first part of the year, I was like, wow, this guy is going to contend for the Calder. And he probably would have, but kind of his season got derailed by a concussion. And then he's been back. He got back the last few weeks of the regular season, and since then has been kind of steadily improving his game. Now you're going to see a lot more of him with Samuel Girard out. He's going to be have some responsibility on the second power play unit. He might even have to penalty kill if probably not, but he did a little bit in the game Girard got hurt because Manson took a penalty, so they were down to I guess 4 available D, and he was out there for the penalty kill and did okay. So you'll see a lot more of him, and he's definitely looking like. Obviously, you're not going to get a Cale Makar defenseman at every number 4 pick, but this guy looks like someone who, if he's healthy, is going to have a really good, really long NHL career.
Peter, a real strong subplot of that series has been the Kadri running into Binnington and, hate speech after that being directed his way. Craig Berube's no comment, Kadri commenting on, not appreciating that. What effect has that subplot had on this series?
Yeah, and I should add that Berube did this morning. He came out and had a statement before media availability.
Okay.
He didn't realize. He said he wasn't on social media, didn't realize the racist nature of some of the things that were being said, and then came out and had a statement. So I just wanted to throw that out for context.
Yeah.
It's been a really testy series. I think you've seen these teams really. Especially after that and the Girard play, I don't think that there's a lot of love between these two teams. I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think, but I talked to a lot of, because obviously all the Avalanche players, coaches, fans, all that were like, it was a hockey player who's going for the puck, and all the Blues fans, players, coaches were like, he was trying to injure someone. In talking to more like national people and people removed, the sense I've gotten is that it was a fine play and that he was more going for the puck, and that's kind of what I saw. And it just was a really unfortunate result. And yeah, obviously the messages he got and all of that are terrible and hugely inappropriate and concerning. And the Avalanche had to have extra security and things like that. And it's a game of hockey. It's not what we should be doing here. And
Right.
That was pretty upsetting. But yeah, that's kind of my whole view on it. The Blues clearly, Shen looks like he wanted to fight him early in the game. Kadri kind of shrugged that off, didn't want to fight. Perron went after him. And the thing is that Jared Bednar talked about, the coach, was that, when Perron, if you remember, he kind of gives Perron a little shove, then Buchnevich cross-checks him to the ice. Then Kadri starts to get up, and Perron kind of jumps on top of him. And Bednar talked about how he was really happy just with how Kadri reacted to that, of he didn't get into it with either of them other than the initial shove of Perron. he kind of just like kept his head down and was like, we're going to take the penalty or like, you guys are going to go to the penalty box. We'll get a power play and we'll do what we can with it. And they ended up scoring just after the power play expired while the Blues were still kind of getting set. And that ended up being technically the game-winning goal.
Yeah, in terms of the Kadri-Binnington play there, I actually thought a guy who, I'm just going to say you and Kyper have on this show from time to time. Brian Lawton did a great breakdown of it in terms of the way his skates were positioned, and it's not a guy lunging to attack. It's a guy lunging to get the puck there. You know, in terms of the Perron play, the Perron plays, there was the one he got dinged for.
Yeah.
There was the flying elbow that I don't think garnered anything at all. To be perfectly honest, I am a bit of a caveman. I think you got to kill somebody to get suspended in the playoffs. But I am astonished that it was a flying elbow and, okay, we'll just kind of lump that in as part of the other fine he's going to get. I was astonished there wasn't, maybe not a hearing, but just more talk about that elbow play because, man, that is dangerous if he connects.
Yeah, if you make contact there, I think we're probably talking about a suspension. But we've seen, look, the NHL has kind of shown that, for better or worse, I don't maybe love this philosophy, but like you saw in the St. Louis, Minnesota series with Spurgeon bringing his stick down on Buchnevic's Achilles, like he didn't get hurt, so they didn't suspend him. If Buchnevich is out for the series, I would assume Jared Spurgeon, as good a reputation as he has, is probably getting suspended. If David Perron makes contact with Kadri and Kadri leaves the game, he's probably getting suspended. So I think that's probably why that didn't garner as much. But yeah, it was definitely I did not think that response necessarily helped the Blues, considering Kadri ended up scoring essentially on the 5-on-3. It was technically after it ended, and that was the Blues scored 3 goals, and that was the Avs' 4th goal. So
yeah. The last guy I want to get your take on here is just Cale Makar. Right now we're watching Connor McDavid take over a series. I thought Makar has had moments where he has done that for the Avalanche. In your estimation, has he been that guy that they've needed him to be this series?
Yeah, it's hard to say he hasn't been with kind of where they're situated in the series. I do think Makar was a little, I don't want to say, I guess I would say a little off the first 2 games of the series.
Yeah.
He wasn't at his best, and I think that was apparent in both just like the lack of it's funny, you look at like game 2, I was like, wow, Makar like really didn't have a good game. He's still like expected goals were still better for the Avs when he was on the ice, still generated more shots when he was on the ice. Like he still was a productive player, but I do think that you've seen the last 2 games him kind of refine that groove where he is about as dynamic of a player, maybe aside from McDavid, as there is in the NHL. He's generating a lot of shots. There are these moments where he'll just like, you can see him kind of just like pick where he wants to be on the ice, and he'll just get there. And it's nuts. He's a heck of a player, and it's pretty fun watching him on a daily basis. And now that he's found his legs, especially, it seems like he's kind of going to be in a good spot for the rest of the series.
For sure. Well, we appreciate all of your insight. Enjoy the rest of the series, and hopefully, you enjoy Alberta in the next round. Looking pretty likely.
Yeah, they've got to win another game, so we'll see.
All right. Thanks a lot, Peter. We appreciate it.
All right, take care.
Peter Baugh, Avalanche beat writer for The Athletic. A lot of good hockey players on that Avalanche team.
There are a ton, and on it, we talk about them all the time, so we don't need to. It does feel like Cale Makar. We had our moment with him. We had our summer fling when he scored the OT winner when he just cooked Kirby Dach way back when. It feels like now we almost we refound our level with him. We're like, yeah, he's great. And I need him to have the McDavid-esque playoffs before we can get back to gushing about him. Because, man, so many. A guy we didn't even mention there, his partner, Devon Taves, man, what a pickup that was.
Yeah.
Couple second rounders for that guy.
Norris Trophy votes coming for him, too.
Again, we always talk about the high end on that team. Yeah. Top to bottom, they are loaded.
They are really loaded. I can't help but think of their next opponent and just be like, God, they'd be massive favorites. St. Louis look like a team who could upset them, but boy.
Well, so here's the thing, and I don't disagree with you. I think you're right about this. How weird is it to say, man, they hope it's McDavid they get next round?
I actually think you're right.
No,
the type of team that would beat Colorado is you think about a more physical. I would say a knock on Colorado is not unlike the Leafs. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're a particularly tough team. You look at their bottom 6.
Bodes well for how they played against the Blues, though, right?
For sure.
That's the knock on them.
For sure it does. I just think they're not big in the bottom half of their forward group. And, against the Oilers, I think they would have a little bit of space to do the things they do. Nathan McKinnon's a horse. It takes some strong people to contain him, and the Blues have done okay with that. It'd be a tough task for an Oilers team.
Well, I was not this year, but in years past when it was okay, it's going to be Boston or it's going to be Tampa for the Leafs. It's like Tampa's the better team, but I thought the Leafs had a better chance against them because, and again, Tampa now is a different. They've kind of changed who they are a little bit. They're a much pluckier grinder team on top of having all the high-end skill. But when Tampa was just kind of that track meet team, I think to this year's Panthers team, and obviously the way the second round series has gone, it makes it a much easier thing to say, but it's not even close who the Leafs would have had an easier time with in a playoff series. Go score 7 goals a night against the Panthers is far, far easier than scoring 3 against Tampa and holding them to 2.
Yeah, you're right. That Tampa team that lost in 2019 was like the best offensive team, just like Colorado this year, but not nearly as well-rounded. So now Payne. Let's do Leafs stuff.
Okay. Yeah, bring it in, McKee.
If
me cry.
If we're talking Payne, who should Leaf fans be more rooting for, more Hyman or Kadri?
Boy. There's a lot of love. Like, Naz feels like, I don't know. There's a lot of love here for Kadri.
If he was still here, there would be people who were anti-Naz. But now that he is gone and you only see the good and you do not have the headache of the bad, he has a universal 1,000% approval rating in this market.
One of those Leafs L's that McKee always talks about is looking at some of the guys who aren't here anymore and how like beloved the playing style they had. Like Naz being one. Hyman obviously plays a gritty game they love. Connor Brown.
Oh, yeah.
Really that type of guy, too. I mean,
big time. I love Connor. And here's the thing I'll say about Connor Brown is, and there's like a million guys here now, I genuinely don't know if anyone ever loved being a Toronto Maple Leaf more than Brown. Like, they would show all these, like, this wasn't the Amazon series, but this was the Road to the Winter Classic. And it's like, they're showing his parents are standing there waiting to meet up with him after a game. And it's like a Tuesday against the Wings. And like his mom's like, what's wrong? And his dad's like, well, they lost. And it's like, he just took it so hard. Yeah. It's like, he always felt like that. And now they got, a million local boys. And I actually really like the point you and Kyper were getting to about that of maybe too many. But I love Connor Brown.
You know where Connor Brown is a golf member?
I do not.
St. George's.
Wow.
Comedian Open host.
That's
coming
right.
up here in a couple of weeks. So one thing to add, if you have any questions.
By the way, it's Naz. It's Naz.
Naz is the one they miss most?
Yeah, and that's the one I think most would probably be cheering for because it's less fresh.
And the other part of it, too, is that Hyman felt like it had to happen. There was no world where you were going to come to a contract number, whereas we all, and I'm sure we'll do it many, many more times, we can all live in the world where that Kadri trade didn't happen because it didn't have to.
Right.
Well, everyone said it had to happen. Because he did a dumb thing in the playoff. Oh, you got to trade this controllable center who plays a gritty game, who scores.
I didn't think you had to trade him.
Yeah,
but
that was the number one.
I understood.
The stupidest thing ever.
I don't disagree with what you're saying, that it was a terrible trade. It has not worked out well. I still firmly believe that and I know he got suspended the next year, so I know that's a big knock against this argument, but I don't believe he's this guy in Toronto. I don't even think it's the pressure, but it's so much louder here. It just is. And the fact that he can just go and play hockey in Colorado and be a second line center. And I know he was the third line guy here when he left, but it's just, that to me is just another, and look, it's a career year of career years. He's never going to have a year like this again. He's a great player, but it's just, again, it's just when the noise is here, it's just harder.
The best take on this, I think, came from Kyper, which was that he doesn't think Naz does what he does in those postseason series.
If they have other guys.
If they have other guys who do those sort of things. And he means Kyle Clifford. He means Wayne Simmons. He means, they didn't have.
He's not wrong.
He got traded. He got traded because he cared about being a Leaf too much. That's why he got traded.
You're not wrong. That's exactly what it was.
Patrick Marleau got crossed by, I was going to say Louis DeBrusque. That would have been a wild storyline. But he got cross-checked by Jake DeBrusque. And Naz was like, I just love this team so much, I have to defend him, and cross-checked him in the throat. It's not the best move.
I remember the exact establishment I was at watching that game, and the takes were flying, both about DeBrusque and Kadri. It was a fired-up night.
It's interesting to look back on that trade, the Kadri one, because what was the Calgary one?
Well, wasn't it Brody?
It was Brody and somebody else.
Yeah, I think it was a huge ask, wasn't it?
I have never heard the full on what it actually
there was another.
was.
There was a forward. Witowski, was that a forward?
No,
Is that a man
he's
that
D.
existed?
No, Luke
That
Witowski's
definitely
a D man.
sounds like a person who played in the Western Hockey League. I can tell you how
There
much
was a
for
guy.
sure.
There was a forward that they had. Jankowski, is that a
Yeah,
guy?
that's
He
a
played.
guy.
Did he play for
Yep.
the Flames?
Yeah.
Maybe him. And they had. That was the trade. Him and Brody for. And it's. I think Brody has a pretty high approval rating in Toronto.
Oh yeah.
I think it'd be pretty interesting to see what the perception of him would be
Way worse.
if he had been traded for Kadri. I don't think he would be given the same leeway he's given now as a guy that's, I think, pretty well
loved. It would be interesting to hear this conversation if you don't lose the trade so badly.
Yep.
Oh, just
like
killed.
Let's say they get back, which you should get back for what Naz is. Let's say they get back what you should. It's just, I will say this. I am, you guys know, much more than Kyper.
Mm-hmm.
I am willing to defend Kyle Dubas.
I've heard tale.
I am a Dubas guy, right? I like a lot of his moves. The team's very good. Like it. This one is like so rough because the two pieces he gets back for Naz are the exact knocks on Dubas. It's like, oh, you wanted a skilly puck moving guy who can't defend, and a skilly good skater who's a lower, a small lower depth guy. A small depth guy is not.
So this may be a bigger conversation we can have here, but I think it's maybe who he was at that point when he made that trade.
Naz or Kyle?
Kyle.
Yeah.
There's no
so I
way he
agree
makes
with where
that
you're
trade
going with this.
today.
I
No
agree.
way.
I think he's changed his tune about what works too.
We can talk about the leading scorer at the IHFF or championships over wherever it is in Finland. And it's Dennis Mulligan, so this gives us a good opportunity.
Scorer in the World
Yes,
Championships, the return for Mason Marchment.
I don't think there's
who has more points this week.
There's no world he makes that trade. And obviously with hindsight, not talking hindsight here, with the way he thinks about things now and the way he builds his bottom
Simmons
six
and Clifford
and builds, I think it would be. It's a heartbreaking trade because of the time it was made, because of the way he sort of looked at the bottom six of his lineup at that point. No,
he wanted it to be that everyone could score and contribute and yada yada. And so we were actually on to this point a little bit before about my changing belief about how teams can be successful. And the one thing that, I got a text today from a buddy who's like, I'm hearing too many people say that the Leafs should fill in their missing places with the guys in the Marlies, because that's Nick Robertson and Abruzzese and smaller skilled forwards, which I think was the Dubas of old. But I really have come to this place where I feel like the NHL is still hockey. It's never going in a direction where it's going to be all run and gun all the time, because you'll run into someone who will smash your face in, and those people tend to make guys pull up in the corners a little bit. By the way, that brings me to Willie Nylander, who there was a highlight video on Twitter. Someone put it on there. I
Wrecking
apologize.
ball at the IHF.
Mashing people, like 4 solid body checks and a back check where he takes the puck from someone.
I'm right there with you. And
it was Antoinetta.
Thank you very much for sharing that clip of Willie.
At MNM fan 76.
And
so
by
I
the
think
way,
she likes
it is
Eminem.
peak Willie for if you're not a Willie guy to be like, yeah, he's running Latvia's show. Like, shocker.
Yeah, of course he is. I'm with you because I have had a similar kind of evolution. Here's the thing about Kyle Dubas. Do you know who he would love to have in his lineup, or at least able to be penciled in there for not April, but September and October, is a Matthew Knies. Like, we talk about all the prospects, and that's the thing that he gives you that's different. And it's just, you are 1,000% right. If they make that Kadri trade today, it is not for two small, skilly guys. Because, and I think that sometimes we go the other way and we say, well, who cares if they can play? Just make sure they can run around. No, you need guys who can play, but you need guys with some heft. You need guys who, again, like, it's so easy to say because he had 2 goals in Game 7. You need some Nick Pauls. Like, I'm pretty sure it was your show that I heard this on.
We're the Nick Paul show.
This show that
we are real Nick Paul and Bourne.
He led the league in puck battles won per 60 or something along those lines when he got picked up by Tampa at the deadline. And there is nothing wrong with having talented, skillful. Look, and again, I'm sounding like Kyper now. I know. Mitch Marner, small, skilled guy. You know what he does? He competes. He wins battles. He goes and gets it. But you need guys who are like that, who have that mindset, who are also 6'2", 225. You do need some size. You do. And I have come around on this as well. And if a Dumbo like me can figure that out, I imagine the GM of the Leafs is evolving in a similar manner.
The other day I said Sammy wouldn't even really answer it, but the Leafs were a goal short of moving on in the first round, and Matthew Knies didn't join them. Do you think Matthew Nice 1 goal? Could he made a 1 goal difference in a series?
There are 700,000 things that could have happened that were 1 goal difference. A guy who everyone says is a top, 10 prospect in hockey or however you want to look at it. Yeah, I think he might have made just a little crack of difference. But hey, I hope he's having a time with the Golden Gophers next year. It's gonna be fun.
It's a bad name, Golden
Winner
Gophers.
in Minnesota.
So
love the Golden Gophers.
I just don't like I love the logo, love the colors. Just don't necessarily love the name.
No, you're right.
It's not the most intimidating of animal men.
So I got sent this like HF Boards basically article.
Oh, yes.
About a trade proposal. And usually they're just so far in left field that they're just like, it's not even honestly worth the time.
This is like my anti-sweet spot. It's my sour spot is random trades.
Okay.
Carry on.
But this is one that's relevant to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And you're talking about size.
Yeah.
So this was sent to me by my good buddy Keegan. He was no way he's listening. He hates sports radio, so he would not be listening.
How do you hate sports radio and make hot HF Boards trades?
He just thinks it's boring.
It's a great question.
It's been a touchy point.
Let's not sewer our industry while we're doing our job.
Let's not get bogged down in
we
that.
love you. Bad take.
So, okay, Willie Nylander is involved in this trade. Timothy Liljegren is involved in this trade. Oh boy! And the Toronto Maple Leafs first round pick in 2024 is involved in this trade.
Oh my God! Okay. So I hate this. I hate this.
Coming back from the formerly Phoenix Coyotes, Arizona Coyotes. Jacob Chikrin.
Yeah.
Lawson Krause, and their third round pick to get some depth for this year. They have a million picks.
Here's what I said to you before the show when you told me you were going to bring this up on air. I hate this stuff. I hate it.
I love it. No, this is sports radio.
I'm
People
aware of what
listening
it is.
are horned up by this, for sure.
I will say some of my favorite moments of doing sports radio is give me your trades. And
here's why I hate it.
People need it.
Here's why I hate it. These are very involved conversations if you want to do it seriously. Like to figure out the cap hits and the balancing.
This works. Cap friendly.
I'm
it works.
Sure it does.
It does. Hey.
And to look at, who's coming for prospects and how does this affect, how does Krause bump who in the lineup? Chikrin, what does that do to the D-core? There's so many moving parts looking at Arizona and their direction to just be like, I hate it or I love it. It's impossible. You need days to make sense of this stuff.
You're too measured. Okay, you're too measured.
Having said all that, imagine how thick and girthy the Leafs would look with Lawson Krause and Chikrin in there. Like, come on. I say no at absolute very first blush. Like, you must make a decision right now in the next millisecond. I say no because I don't.
Cousin Bill.
Yeah. Here's the thing, man. Like, it's so immensely frustrating, but we always do this thing, especially with a defenseman. And I'm not saying he's not. We're all just like, okay, yeah, Chikrin's good, and you're going to love him, and you're never going to be upset by the effort, or you're never going to, and the contract's great, all that stuff. But we always just assume, and again, with defensemen, it is so much easier to just go, yeah, I'll fit. He's a D. He'll fit in and figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's why I say no. Nylander's special, and
when he's going, right?
When he is going, he's going. And when he's not, he's Nylander. But it's just,
I gotta
still say no.
The Chikrin contract being 4.6
it's amazing.
Is nice. Krause makes 1.5, which is also nice. He's an RFA, so you control him.
What are you gonna give him?
That's nice.
Yeah.
You like other things about that, so sure.
He's big. Nick Paul type.
Yes. Yeah. No, there is a ton to like about the return for sure.
Listen, I am incredibly pissed off about that Sweden video.
so hot about Nylander throwing body checks.
I got to
watching.
Nylander created in the lab to make you mad.
I got to juxtapose. Listen, you know me. I have come to grips with what William Nylander is.
Well, until you see that video.
Fully.
I even came on the air and kind of defended the play where he got roasted, where he pulled up in the corner. I even sort of defended that on air with Kyper, and he was so mad at me.
That is the bravest thing I've ever heard in my life, by the way, defending that to Kyper.
To put those two videos beside each other is trade them. That's like I'm just like I can't watch this.
The fundamental difference is one is take a hit, one is throw a hit. Willie's willing to throw a hit.
The other one
when's he throwing a hit?
No, he
one's
doesn't.
Victor Hedman, and one is some guy on Latvia is another part of this.
Victor's
as well.
Hedmans?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Is Ted's Nolan still coaching that team?
He better be.
I don't know. It just it really infuriated me. And I hate to be that guy. And listen, I know I'm Joe and Maple right now. I'm Joe and Etobicoke being like, oh, Willie plays soft, blah, blah, blah. But to see him going out there against an inferior opponent and being like, I can throw my weight around. Maybe you could just try it against an NHL team. Just try it. Just try it. Maybe you like it. Anyways, I'm done.
Willie,
I'm done. I'm just pissed off.
Yeah, Willie has lost. You can't deny some of what Willie
For
is.
sure.
You know, that's a part of the element is that
1,000%.
frustration.
That's the reason why I make $7 million.
Yeah, and not 17.
Yeah,
I don't know,
exactly.
whatever, 11. You know, it's that.
I don't want to make you look at the cap again. I know how upset you got with our fake trades.
Yeah, well, there's just so many moving parts. You know, what's Liljegren? What are you moving on from? How does that affect your right side going forward? Yeah, there's just a lot there.
You're too measured.
No, here's the other thing though. I see. I'm not. But I'm out on this because Liljegren and Gio. That's a pair, man.
Oh.
They were.
Yeah, great fourth pair. Good press box pair. Anyways, I got another question for you about the offseason.
We also have to do a wish list if we want.
Yeah, this is part of it.
Okay.
What is the highest pick or the most amount of money you would pair to get rid of Peter Mrazek?
Love that question.
That is a great question.
Thank you.
So all of the money you're taking Mrazek, all the money.
If you're taking all the Mrazek money, how high of a pick are you willing to go?
I guess the conversation is: are you willing to do a fourth? You're not
Yes.
giving up a third. You are.
I would do a 4,000 to take all the money, but
1,000%.
there's no
Third?
way someone would do it. Yes.
Second. Okay.
Maybe not.
You know,
Here's the thing. You better because it is if you do the buyout, it's $1 million on the cap this year, or it's a 1.84
you'd
this
be
year.
much better to just retain.
No,
right?
I don't disagree. But the point I'm making in that is if you're making the trade with the idea of, okay, we're going to give up a second to get out of you better have a really good answer for what the 3.2 or whatever he's sitting at is. Like, I have no problem with that, but it can't be to parse and parcel a little bit here, a little bit there. There has to be, and again, it can be any of these things. It is, we are bringing Mikheyev back at a number that is going to be a little higher than we'd like. It's going to be, here is the new second line
It's just
center.
going to be Jack's money.
And I guess that's it, right? It's
It's just Jack's money now. And then you say, here, Jack, here's Peter's money on top of the old money you made. And also Eric Shalgren's going to make 800 and off we go.
I don't know what the other options are. Are we sure that that's the move?
No,
No, okay,
definitely
cool,
not.
Because I'm
definitely not.
am
I
not at
don't
all
know
there.
how I feel about Campbell going forward. I would love to have him for 1 year.
That'd be great.
But what if you
never gonna
give
happen.
him 4 times 5 and you decide he's not a number one halfway through next season?
We're doing Peter Mrazek, and it's a lot more than a second rounder. to get rid
Well,
of
and
him.
that's just the end of the run then. Like, if you got to do it again, like the
Yep.
window starts to close. By the way, just before we carry on, I'm on Arizona's page because of all this. Next year, they have their first round pick,
it's
which
so
is
good.
what?
They have 3
Second-
first-round picks next year.
Yeah, next year they have their pick, Carolina's pick, and Colorado's pick all in the first round. Then they have their pick, the Islanders pick, the Flyers pick, and the Sharks pick in the second round. 7 picks. The Leafs have 3 total.
That's how you build. That's
Yeah, we'll see. But this is like Ottawa has built, and then they sell everyone before they're
Yeah,
good. Will
listen.
Arizona pay these guys? And
listen, if you're doing it right,
yeah,
you tank out by taking on money, I guess, or just trading for other
You save money by
assets.
they
playing
have
in a
been willing
college
to do
barn.
that this
Yeah.
year, and yeah.
Yeah.
But like, I always say that when you strip a team down entirely and lose intentionally, we just haven't seen enough teams turn it around and have success for me to say it works.
The only time it does, almost ever, is if you hit on the absolute and not a good player, but it's not just the first pick. It can't be any first pick. Like look at the Rangers and
generational. You
Lafreniere,
need
right?
Crosby, you need
McDavid.
Matthews.
And Matthews. Even then, like the Oilers, this is as far as they've ever been since McDavid has been there. You've seen Buffalo tear it down, can't get back. Devils have
the
struggled.
one thing
Red
I will-
Wings have struggled. Kings finally kind of coming around.
The one thing I'll say about the Yotes, and this is like I'm half kidding, but it's true, is that they're not going to get in trouble paying people. Like where the Oilers have run into missteps there is big contract that did not work out. Now you have to work around it. Now you have a much shorter cap to work with. The Coyotes are not going to blow their brains out to give somebody a huge deal, almost whoever it is. So I think that's the thing that, yes, you still have to hit, but they're not going to have all this, you know what, now's the time we make a big splash in free agency. Not going to happen.
No. Agreed.
So, yeah, I think Mrazek's the number one priority.
That's
to
like
get rid of
it
that.
has to happen. That's
It
not
has to
like
happen.
imagine that they just say, well, we don't want to give up any assets or whatever, so we believe that this guy can turn it around. He
Please,
had
God,
an
no.
injury-laden
Please-
year. We
please.
believe he can.
Please no.
I mean, he can't be your starter, but like, you know,
I'm not advocating for this, but I'm really not convinced. Like, I'm convinced there is absolutely a world that he is poking around as backup when camp starts up next year. I do think, again, it's because of this front office, and I am a big supporter of them, but they do have a tendency to talk themselves into the rosiest possible outcome of a situation. And for me, it's really easy to sit there. And again, I don't believe this, but it is easy to sit there and go, that was as bad as he's ever been in his entire life. If he's hurt, we can put him on LTIR. And if he's not, there's no way he's that bad again. I am not advocating for that, but I don't think we should all sit here going, well, we won't have to deal with Peter next year. I'm not so sure about that. I'm really not.
I think you make a good point.
Thank you.
It's right. It's true. But it's
And again, I don't
I want to be
that
right
happen.
that we said that he played his last game as a Leaf. Like, when was that? After he pulled his groin for the 10th time this
March.
year?
Yeah. It really was March at some point. So do you remember the other day when I told you that McDavid was plus 430 to get a point?
Mm-hmm.
The Flames right now are the same amount to win the series. Down 3-1. Would you take the Flames at plus 450 to win this series?
If it was in this plus 700 range.
Yeah.
I think that's a too short a number. I think they
I do too.
I think they think they may be coming back.
Well, the reason I checked is because I can see it. There's a world to me where, okay, they're back in Calgary. I think they're the superior team. Markstrom's a goalie.
Mike Smith is lurking.
Yeah. You know,
He let one in from his own end, the other end. Yeah.
You get a W, and all of a sudden it's like you get that belief a little bit, and the better team starts to roll. Like, I don't think they're out of it by any stretch, but plus 450.
Yeah, that's it. It's just McKee nailed it. You need to be in the 650, 700 number there to feel good. It's too hard to think you're going to not have the one game. Like, all that has to happen is the thing we talked about for the entire start of the show is that Connor McDavid is Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
For one game.
One more time.
And it doesn't matter.
So the other series on that same betting front is Colorado St. Louis. St. Louis down as well.
Yep.
They are plus, would you like to guess?
I say plus 550.
6.
Plus 1,700.
What?
1700 to come back and win this series.
That is a monster discrepancy.
Monster number. Plus 450 to plus 1,700. That's how much of a long shot.
Do they hate Husso that much? Like, I don't know, honestly.
That's a relevant question.
That's got to be it. Like, I mean, look.
He's been bad.
He has been.
And we talked about maybe him being on the Leafs next year.
Honestly, there was shots. You know, I sat there with Kyper before the show yesterday watching the highlights, and I was like, you imagine if Campbell let that one in?
Oh,
He was, you know.
I would be if I was one Nazem Kadri tonight, I would be keeping my head up.
Yeah, you think so?
If this game,
if you're St. Louis, don't you have to go, we can't worry about that guy anymore. We got to go win a hockey game.
If it gets to
stretched,
3, one way or another.
Yeah, if things get a little out of hand, which I could see it happening, like the Blues kind of, they're kind of on the end here.
Yeah.
You know,
To
like
me,
Peter
you gotta have a
Baugh
long
said, they
memory,
have
get it next
way
year.
better players.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know.
I did love that assessment. Well, Gunnar, thank you very much for joining us. It was
fun to be back.
Next time I talk to you, I hope it's on the first tee somewhere.
So do I.
Our thanks to Shayna Goldman, who joined us, talk some Rangers, to Ryan Leslie, a little chit-chat on the Flames, and Peter Baugh on the Colorado Avalanche. You know, let's see tonight if we can get another series locked up. Looking forward to it.
Let's see it.
And yeah, we'll be back tomorrow with Nick Kypreos on Real Kyper and Bourne.